attention for like a hot second. Thank you all for coming. My name's Eppa. I've been the guy blasting emails at pretty much everyone that's here. We are so grateful to have all of our hop and barley farmers here together to kind of just celebrate our partnership. And I think this beer that we're going to brew is a really cool thing. It's the first commercial batch of beer that we've made here in the new facility. We just got our license like, what, days ago? I think literally.
We already brewed it legally.
Well, yeah, don't tell them that. Keep that on the down low.
We're both wearing
This is a legal brew though. And this one will actually get served in the tap room, fingers crossed, barring anything going wrong.
We've been legal longer than a few days.
Okay, maybe a few weeks. But it's really exciting. This is probably one of the first batches of beer that will get served in the tap room, and we thought it was a really cool way to bring all of you guys together to collaborate on this beer, really think through what we want to do together. Jeremy's going to introduce kind of the brewing process and some of the ingredient decisions that we have, talk about naming, some of the creativity to it. After the brew, we will be meeting over there to have kind of our annual symposium. That'll be at like 2:30ish. And then from there, we'll be heading to Fado, which is an Irish restaurant, for dinner before boarding the boat. Key time to know is 7 p.m. That's when the boat will be leaving. If you miss it, you miss it. So don't miss it. All of the addresses should be in the email that I sent out this morning at the Ask Crack of Dawn. If you didn't get the email, I can forward it to you, and I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy. Kick it off.
I don't have as nearly loud of a voice as Eppa, I don't think. He has a very good projection, but I just barely made it here today. I just flew here with no ID and no wallet, and they let me on the plane. So if anybody wants to know how that works, I'll be happy to talk about it. I'm completely amazed. I think it really helped that I wasn't wearing like a turban or anything, but
for some of you barley growers, you probably remember this same story 5 years ago.
First time I tried to come to Canada, my passport expired that day, and I thought, they said it was 6 months, and I thought it was 6 months the other direction, but they said, no, you went the wrong way. So I thought I had a 6-month buffer. So anyways, but I'm doing pretty good making it here. So the idea here was to incorporate a little bit of what all of you do into all one beer. And we're already taking some polls from the group on what we're going to call this beer. And then that always involves a Google search to find out which one of the country's 9,000 breweries already has the most obscure, ridiculous name that you can think up of. And then you find out that it might be taken already. But we'll get to that later. And I did find out that the pallet of mixed hops that we sent from California, just like me, it just barely made it here. So we actually do have everything. So the recipe is about 15 or 18 sacks of, how many sacks? 17, 25 kilo for the metric system people, that would be you Canadians, and then for all of us dumb Americans, that's in like some sort of obscure measure. Like, would that be hogsheads or centners or something? Something that's not powers of 10. And so that's in here. That's going to equate to about probably about a 7.5% beer, which in the United States, that's an IPA, but anywhere else in the world, that's like a barley wine. But in Canada, that's an IPA. So we're starting with the finest Canadian barley, all from RAR. There's a bunch of you guys. I know there's corns from all of you guys in there, because when we get it from RAR, and here's some of our RAR guys, Kevin and Mark are here. I think, it's a blend of, I'd like to assume everybody's in there, because it's the best of the best. And that's what we're starting with. There's no English malts in there. If there was someone here from England, we would put one corn in there, just to solidify that. And then some of you guys brought hops, and then we brought the hops on your behalf for those who didn't, because I travel with hops a lot, and I probably wouldn't have made it on the plane today with only hops and no ID. That would look really strange. And you do get a lot of strange looks when you Leon, you remember the time we were coming back from harvest with brewer's cuts?
Brewer's cuts, yeah.
It stunk up the whole plane. It made some ladies just
We almost got
nauseous.
kicked off that plane.
And I was just loving it. I was like, this is great. We're making people sick. That was a particularly, pungent year for, what year was that? It was like 2011 crop maybe?
Yeah. But when you get inside a closed vessel of an airplane, all of a sudden,
Yep. With all that
all of a
air.
sudden that hop aroma starts to become pretty overwhelming,
I hate to
And
say
people were
it,
looking
but
around like, who the hell is that? And we were all like, friggin' God, I don't know whose baggage that is, man.
we claimed ignorance. But when I look back on all the harvests, I hate to say it, but it all becomes kind of a blur. Like I was trying to remember what was the year that the barley was super high, this or that, or the really good year, or the really bad year, the year that the bumper crop, or I don't know. It just all becomes like one giant blur, kind of like fatherhood. Right on cue. Thanks, kid. So some of the interesting hops that we didn't really have a lot of access to that was brought. YCH Hops brought some Ron Mexico, and if you want to say something about that, you gotta yell into my chest.
Okay.
Because I'm wearing a wire.
Well, I love talking about Ron Mexico. Does anyone know who that is? Well, forget about that person. It just happens to be a Hafnia Mexicanus hop that Jason Peralt showed me back in, I think it was 2007. It was a single hill at that time. He said, you got to check this hop out. And so we brewed with it, and for years it's done really well in the Fresh Hop Ale Festival. So we just happened to nickname it Ron Mexico because it's Hafnia Mexicanus, and the name kind of stuck. So my good friend Jeremy here has a good sense of humor, so sent him some Ron Mexico a while back and made a beer, and it's just gained a lot of traction, and now it's a few acres, and hopefully someday it becomes a commercial hop variety. It's HBC 438. So Chuck Zimmerman, the godfather of hop breeding, and Jason Peralt, the young godfather of breeding, worked on this hop, and we've been playing with it and having fun with it ever since. And we brought a tenth of a Zewatainer.
And is,
Crazy units of measure.
and is this the hop that's known for its particular cone shape?
No, that would be Ron Jeremy.
Oh.
That's when we were
How
walking.
about the size of this cone? Is
Yeah,
this
look at the size of those cones. So the next year when I went out to visit Jason, I said, I need to see where the Ronnies are. Jason, what are you talking about, the Ronnies? I'm like, Ron Jeremy, Ron Mexico. Ah, okay. So it was born.
Bet nobody thought that we were going to talk about that today.
And don't ask how Ron Jeremy smelled. It smelled like shit.
To be expected. So thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
That's the infamous Hop Carl, because his wife came up with that name, and we'll talk about that offline. Yes. And then where's Dean? He brought some Galaxy, and he too is an Aussie, right? So, and you're qualified to talk about a little bit about Galaxy.
So Galaxy is from Hop Products Australia, part of the Fast Brew. My folks grow most of Galaxy down under, so since I'm an Aussie in the Pacific Northwest, I thought we'd bring up some Galaxy to include in the brew. So we're pleased that we're including it, and we're growing more Galaxy. It's in progress, but it's a small industry down under, but we're expanding things as demand comes.
Well, I will say that, let me put this here, and I feel weird, well, it's like the world's smallest mic. Not just, some of you guys are involved with what I call the hard to gets, and these are the sexiest hops that almost dominate brewing to the point that I say the brewer's art is irrelevant now. So I call that auto-tune hops like Citra and Mosaic. If you're a crappy brewer and all your beer tastes like shit, you can just dry hop it with tons of these juicy hops, and then it comes out and everybody goes crazy, and you can just dry hop all your problems away. But I'm proud to say that Galaxy is also one of those hops that's almost impossible to get, right? I mean, Oh, every last little pound of it is contracted for, and craft brewers are clamoring to get it, and it's nice to see that that's happening all the way down in the southern hemisphere and not just up in these parts. And so Galaxy to me is, I think unfairly Nelson Sauvin gets this, oh, it's like wine, it's like white wine, but to me Galaxy smells more like grape juice and white wine grapes than Nelson does. And it's a really nice hop, and it's kind of fruity and known for its kind of middle of the road. It has no like onion and garlic. Whereas we didn't really talk about Ron Mexico, what it's like. It's really hard to describe that. It's almost like fresh cut weeds, like it's real herbaceous, mixed with like a little bit of like Fruit Loops or something. It's something kind of fruity about it. It's distinct, and I think it'll complement the grapiness of Galaxy quite well. And then the third guest hop today that we've never used, thanks Dean, is where's the Hollingberries? You guys brought me something I've never even heard of, so I know nothing. You gotta.
So Caliente is it's been in the ground for probably about 5 years. It's found on Villa Brothers Farms. It's one of those mysterious hops, rogue hops that was found in a Cascade yard, but high alpha, dual purpose, a lot of stone fruit flavor. Yeah, there's about 3 acres of it in the ground, and we have a few regular customers that have been brewing regular beers like white IPAs and wheat beers for a while, but kind of like our marketing system, we haven't pushed it too hard, and it just gets out there by word of mouth and close relationships.
That's the way it needs to go. It's like an organic spreading, and it just kind of develops its own wings and gets a life of its own and gets out there. I feel privileged for only having something that only 3 acres. I think that makes that the most rare hop that's going on here. Because just so for you barley guys, so the barley guys, their fields are like massive, but and I forget about what the yield per acre is. Maybe Brent, what is the? Do it in acres for all us dumb Americans. But nobody knows what a bushel is, because a bushel is different for wheat, soybeans, corn. A bushel is like the same as a lid, right? It's one handful. Is what? Okay, now we have to do math.
It's about 4,500 pounds per acre.
So how many, he's going to work up a number, and then for all the barley people, hops per acre is about, on a crappy old school variety, maybe 800 pounds. I still can't do that. Okay, 4,800 pounds. So there's no hop that can do that yet, right? There's no hop that can do that. But generally speaking, I like to say hops about 2,000 pounds per acre. So for that Caliente, I'm sure it probably doesn't yield that much, or maybe it does. It's higher? Oh, well, we definitely have a percentage of the entire bit. So they're saying it's more of it's an alpha hop. I looked on I took a little sneak peek. It's in the cooler. It's almost 17%. That is the percent of the weight that is bittering value. So that means if we probably put that whole bag in this brew, it would be pretty bitter. So maybe we'll reserve some of it for the dry hopping. And in fact, Britt, if you want to come up here, you have by far the. No, Britt doesn't want to come up here. Can I? Come on. You want to hold this little mic.
I think you should talk about, though, the difference of the relative use of barley versus hop, because the pounds per acre means nothing. Because these guys grow 130 million pounds of hops, or barley for us.
We grow 30,000 metric tons. The group in here grows 30,000 metric tons of barley for Lagunitas. When I met Leon and Jeremy, I think we grew, what did we grow that first year? 5,000?
5,000, yeah.
Tons?
Yeah, 7,000.
You were using 5,000 tons. Now we grow 30,000 tons and you use slightly over that by law. The amount of barley in a normal mash, how many pounds of barley versus how many pounds of hops? What is the ratio?
Well, we use a lot of hops. That's one thing that I think, kind of sets one way to,
Sets you apart.
define, well, not just Lagunitas, but, craft brewers, they're all, but I mean, to put this into perspective for this brew, we might use, say, it's going to be a 15 barrel batch. We might use 50 pounds of hops, and we're going to use maybe 900 pounds of barley. So what is that, a 1 to 18 or something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that. So that's, if we were making a light lager beer or something like, Coors or Budweiser, that would be probably, instead of 18 to 1, it'd be like 18 to 0.01, something like that. But so Brent here has, I think we were thinking of like what we're going to call this beer when it goes on tap. I don't know. That'll be probably about 3 weeks from today is when it'll go on draft. That'll be the first ever house beer that is ever poured here, that was brewed here and poured here. And then and thanks to you guys bringing me a lot of hard to get hops, it'll be impossible to reproduce ever again unless we pester all of you. The barley part is probably the easiest part.
The best beer you ever make, and you'll never be able to make it again.
Yeah. Oh, you talk to any beer snob, that's always the best beer. The one that no one else gets, that was served in a 1 milliliter glass. But so roughly 3 weeks from now, good girl. Some good stuff in there. So roughly 3 weeks from now, it'll go on, and Brent has by far, I think, one of the best name proposals, because earlier we were trying to come up, and we're accepting. It's an open forum for names, and I know no one will want to probably say stuff now while we're recording. You'll be hitting me up later on the boat with some ideas, like anything you can do with Ron Mexico, Caliente, Galaxy, and then we're going to be throwing in a bunch of other hops that just showed up, and also RAR, which we were at a party, and I met Willie RAR and let him know that at Lagunitas it's known as the gay tiger malt, and he goes, why? And I go, RAR. He didn't know how to take that. I think by the end of the night he warmed up. That's an internal joke that was actually told on Halloween at Lagunitas. But so anyways, how do I recover from that? So Brent's idea to name this beer was something that's actually not taken. He searched the Canadian internet, and then I searched American internet, and we couldn't find anything. And your idea was beard and vine, because it takes a lot of facial hair and just hair in general. A lot of hair clogs lead up to good beer. And I think for the hop guys, you guys know what a vine is, but a hop is not technically a vine, it's a vine. And aside from the letter, I don't really know what the difference is. I know the barley guy's not going to know. Does any hop guy know? Technically, we'll have to Google that.
We got lines that have tendrils and grab onto things. Lines are just prickly and grab.
So that relates back to the training.
So grape is a vine because it has little tendrils that grab onto.
So if it needs to be trained for that initial bit, then might it be a vine?
That just helps it.
That just helps it? What happens if you don't train them?
Some of them.
Barley guy says they'll find it.
So Scott kind of started this concept. Scott Keller here, he's one of our barley producers. And when this whole trip was proposed, Scott quickly came out with the, let's call it John Deere beer. And I was waiting for the case guys to come back. But, so with long hours on the tractor, I was thinking, well, okay, so what are we going to call this beer? The easy one was Farmer Fusion. Jeremy said, please don't tell me Farmer Fusion. Because Jeremy's run these fusion beers through the thing. I had some different ideas. One was, I've known Jeremy now 6 years, 5 years. And Jeremy has 3 loves. His newest love, Jude and Chrissy, and his oldest love, beer, and now he's got more love than that. But one of his other loves is The Simpsons. And so when you take barley, what do we love about barley the most in harvest? It's itchy. And if you've been around hops, and we've been playing with hops on our farms, well, they're scratchy. So at first I thought we'd call this itchy and scratchy ale. And that's still open for discussion. But then I went a little more refined and thought, if we're going to be nice, this kind of came to me just last week. I thought, well, beard, because barley all has beards on it, and that's what makes it itchy, actually, is the beards. And so beard, but you also need, I've met many brewers that don't have a beard. I don't know if it's part of being part of the club. So beard, and then of course, so many of the people don't understand that hops is a vine. So it just, that rolls off the tongue so nicely, beard and vine. In fact, I would name my brewery that if Mark, BSG wants to go partners with me, Mark.
Side discussion. And what about the combine?
Well, then what we harvest with, of course, is a combine. A harvester is referenced as a combine. So both, a lot of connotations to the word beard and vine. Or beards and vine, whatever you guys would like, or something completely different, so I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, we will be accepting challenges to Brent's amazing, hard to argue with, very eloquently championed for case. If someone can come up with something really stupid, I might like it more.
Why don't you call it Jeremy's Galactic Hot Mexican Adventure?
That one's taken. That's probably already a beer.
I think that's actually the vacation slides of Omaha.
Hey, Jim, are we going to use any of the classic hops as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we've got a pallet just sent up from Petaluma that looks like it wasn't going to make it, and it's got pretty much everything that we use, so that we're going to be able to incorporate everybody. So we've got like some Cascade, Centennial, stuff like that. So, but we'll probably put that dry hop stamp on it with the Caliente, the Galaxy, and the Ronnie, as it's affectionately known. So these guys are the brewers, and normally that doesn't involve this much hawking. This is only the third brew, or we got one brew here. It's bubbling. It'll bubble if I lift up on this. Oh, good. This will make it throw water on my feet. Oh, yeah. But I don't want to do that because they did that on purpose. So where's the brew at?
We're transferring.
Running off. Is everybody like familiar with the brewing process? We can just like run through that for brewing's very, very cool. And you mix hot water with the malted barley. So barley itself is a very hard seed, and it's like the starch in it is what nature intended to help the seed grow and get up through the ground. And when they malt it, they kind of trick it into sprouting, and then it grows and it softens all that starch, and it also develops enzymes that are used in the brewing process. So some of the enzymes are in the barley and stay the whole way through into malting, and then other ones are formed during malting, and those enzymes together are what actually breaks down that and the heat. So it's like, how do you start with a liquid, hot water, and a solid, a bunch of grinded up grain, and end up with a liquid beer? It liquefies due to the heat, gelatinizes the starch, which is where it takes in hot water, it swells, and it kind of pops. Like under a microscope, it might look kind of like popcorn. And then the enzymes literally break it down into a liquid, and then the husk is sheared off, which is why barley is the grain of choice for brewing, is because it comes with its own filter. So if you don't have barley, you can't even brew with this traditional kind of equipment, a lauter tun. You need to use a completely different set of equipment to brew with large amounts of other grains, such as a mash filter. So we mix hot water and grain in here, and that's in there, and all you guys can, come up here later and just help yourself up the step. It looks like the previous guys took the first step. We don't know why, so we're missing a step, but watch out. You can come up here, you can open up and look in here, like nothing's gonna, nothing's gonna like jump out at you or anything. Now that I say that though, like Chris will get sprayed in the face. Yeah. So right now we formed our sweet wort. So right now it's called sweet wort when it's just sugar water, and it literally tastes like liquid bread. And we can get you guys a sample if you want to taste it. All brewers know it's the ultimate hangover remedy because it's chock full of B vitamins that are later kind of consumed by the yeast, and then also they survive into the beer. So beer does have B vitamins in it, especially 100% barley, so no rice or corn, and big beers. They have a lot of vitamins and all that good stuff. A lot of B vitamins. And so the pump's on. We're transferring the sweet wort into the kettle, and that's where we're going to add our bitterness hops. So if you boil hops, they become water soluble and they make beer bitter. And then we're going to boil that for about an hour. We're going to cool it down. We're going to pitch our yeast off of this other donor tank that was for last week. We're going to send this tank into Penny. Going into a tank named Penny. These are all dead dogs, named after dead dogs. And that will mix with the yeast. The yeast will turn the hop wort into now beer. So notice that the brewer actually didn't make the beer ever. They just made the wort. The yeast make the beer. So if any brewer ever tells you they make beer, they're lying. Because yeast makes beer. Yeast makes all alcohol. And it did it before humans even existed. So like the first time fruit fell and hit the ground, and then it bursted, and some wild yeast from the air, which is everywhere, hit it, and boom, you had the first ethanol formed, and no human had anything to do with it. So that'll turn into beer in about 5 to 7 days, and then we're going to dry hop that beer, which is dry hopping is like the spirit that inhabits a fresh beer, and it's also like the Lagunitas stamp. We dry hopped all of our beers way back in 1995. Even beers that shouldn't have been dry hopped were dry hopped. And you can't really make an IPA without dry hopping. Dry hopping is adding hops to finished beer. And then that, at the colder temperatures, that rather than getting the bitterness, it gets just the essential oils or the terpenes. Basically all of those wonderful things that you smell coming off of a nice IPA. That's where all of that happens. None of that happens really in the boil. Some brewers think that it does, but I don't think that it does. And we dry hop pretty heavily, and then we will cold condition that beer and try to make it look somewhat presentable. Although nowadays, most brewers don't filter anymore, and they're all in a match to see who can make beer that looks more and more and more like porridge or orange juice. And I kind of think hazy is lazy, but sure. We've seen a lot of trends come and go in brewing, and I think there'll be many, many more. I already got a email from some people that said that they knew how to do glow-in-the-dark beer. They wanted us to pay for their patent for genetically modified yeast that make beer glow in the dark, and I just said delete. But I mean, this is what's happening right now. Yeast, because they're a single-celled organism, it's really easy to manipulate a gene and stick it in there. So you can take like something from a firefly and you can put it in a yeast. And this is going on. I also got an email about they're now taking genes from the cannabis plant and putting it in brewer's yeast, so you can have beer that has CBD in it legally. And I said, well, send that to those guys in Colorado. We're old school here, no GMO. It's a nice thing about barley. There's no GMO barley, right? Is there a threat yet? It's kind of a niche crop, right? There's just no reason for it. So inherently, I think beer is free of GMO, and we're not going to use any of these weird yeasts. We're using our Lagunitas house yeast, so it was sent up from California. It's the same yeast that makes the IPA and the Pale Ale. And anything else about this beer, fellas?
Smells good while it's brewing.
Smells good while it's brewing. Can you guys smell that?
So I thought the farmers were going to make the beer, so it sounds like all they're really going to do is shovel out the spent grain, right?
If we want to get everybody up here,
All the barley guys, get ready. You're going to do the shoveling out of this spent grain, man.
the
Hop guys, you can do the little hop dosing into the...
The farmers are still making this beer because without their contributions, none of this is possible. So we're kind of putting it together. If we want to try and cram some people up here, it's good. In about maybe an hour and a half, or depending on how well this goes, we're going to take one of these blue dumpsters back there and bring it up to this thing and open this door and shovel out the grain bed. And, everyone's welcome to join in and do a couple rigs with that. There used to be this thing that helps you do that. Okay, yeah, we didn't know about that last time. That'll be about an hour and a half. It'll be boiling, hopefully boiling by that time. So, yeah, ask if anybody's more curious about the brewing process. It's all happening right here, so feel free to jump in and ask questions. Some people always ask, why is there a oxygen cylinder over here? Is that like for the brewer? Maybe they smoke too much of something and need a bit of fresh oxygen. Yeasts need a little bit of oxygen to build up their cell membranes to send them into reproduction mode. So that's what kind of gears them up to build up their numbers in order to convert all that sugar from the barley, from the malted barley, into beer. So if we skip that stage and we literally take the oxygen from that cylinder and inject it in line, and it's pretty cool. You'll be able to see in this window here, you'll be able to see that it's like kind of almost like foaming the beer for momentarily, and that's all that oxygen going in. And then as soon as it meets the yeast find that oxygen and gobble it all up in like record amount of time, like mere minutes. John, you got a question? Yeah. Because the solubility of oxygen is much better at lower temperatures. I think all brewers do. The philosophical difference is whether or not they use compressed air, which is mostly nitrogen, because the air is about like 18 or 19 or whatever % oxygen. So you can do that. It's just fine. Or you can just get bottled beverage grade oxygen. If you didn't do that, probably the best thing to do would be to add a whole lot more yeast, because you won't get as much growth. So you want to establish their numbers. You can think of like yeast in a beer tank as like humans on an island. The humans will get there, they'll assess the resources, and they'll procreate until all of the resources are exhausted, and then they die off. And that's what yeast do when they go into a beer tank. It's not the best metaphor for the planet Earth, or like the movie Independence Day and all that kind of stuff, But that's basically what they do. Is they're going to go in there, they're going to sense how much carbon is there, how much food is there, and then they're going to replicate and build up their numbers to match the food, and then they're going to exhaust everything, and then they're going to go to sleep and fall to the bottom, where we're either going to drain them out and brew another batch with them, like we're doing. We're going to brew today's batch off last week's batch in that tank. Or typically you make too much yeast, and you got to let some go, and they don't get to make another batch. One real interesting fact: brewers are the only fermented beverage people that actually take care of their yeast. So wine people use it once, chuck it. They don't care. Distillers use it once, chuck it. Everyone else that makes every other beverage doesn't care about their yeast. Only brewers care about their yeast. So I bet some of you guys didn't know that. So anyways, we'll let everybody get back to talking, and if anyone wants to check out the brew,
Yeah, feel free to take 30 minutes,